If you're watching The Gilded Age on HBO and wondering how much of it is actually true, you're not alone. The show dives into the crazy world of late 1800s New York, where old money snobs and flashy new rich families battled it out over who really ran the city. It's got all the drama you'd expect: big mansions, secret scandals, and people desperate to climb the social ladder. But how much of that is history and how much is just Hollywood storytelling? The show was created by Julian Fellowes, also the creator of Downton Abbey. He originally planned to focus on Cornelius Vanderbilt, one of the era's big railroad tycoons, but realized the whole period, the so-called American Renaissance, had way more stories to tell. So instead of sticking to just one character, he built a whole world with a mix of real historical figures and fictional characters. For example, you get real people like Mrs. Astor, a huge social queen, Ward McAllister, her right-hand man, Clara Barton, the nurse who founded the Red Cross, and Stanford White, a famous architect. But you also get made-up characters like George and Bertha Russell, the rich couple trying to buy their way into high society. To keep things from getting wild, the show brought in Erica Armstrong Dunbar, a history professor who is an expert in 19th century America. She read the scripts and gave notes to help keep the story's setting feeling real and also respectful. Dunbar says the show does a great job of capturing what it felt like to be wealthy during that time and how new money citizens worked hard to fit in with the old money crowd, even if that meant throwing tons of money at charities or building fancy opera houses. That's pretty much what happened in real life. The rich families who were born into money looked down on the newcomers, and those newcomers fought tooth and nail to be accepted. Take Bertha Russell, for example. She's all about status and pushing her family into the old money club, which was very common. Real-life social climbers did things like donate to the arts or start institutions to get their names on the map. And the show nails how ruthless that social gatekeeping was. Agnes Van Ryn, played by Christine Baranski, is basically the queen of the old guard, telling everyone, "We only receive the old people, not the new." But, of course, the show does take some liberties, like the friendship between Peggy Scott, a black woman working as a secretary, and Marion Brooke, a young white woman. That kind of cross-racial friendship was pretty rare back then, mostly because black and white communities lived very separate lives. It's not impossible, though. Dunbar points out that there were moments in history when black and white women worked together, especially in the abolition and suffrage movements. Also, Peggy living and working uptown on the Upper East Side is a bit of a stretch. Most black families lived in places like Brooklyn's Fort Greene or Weeksville neighborhoods, which were thriving communities after the Civil War. Peggy's character is important because she shows the rare opportunities some educated black women had, not just as domestic workers, but in professional roles too. That's historically accurate, though still pretty uncommon. The show also doesn't shy away from the tough realities black families faced, like Peggy's mom worrying she might never have the normal life of marriage and family. Then there are the servants, English butlers, German cooks, and housekeepers who also add another layer to the story. These roles were often stepping stones for immigrants and younger workers who hoped to move up in the world, not just dead-end jobs. The show captures that shift well, showing how the social order was changing for everyone, not just the rich. So yeah, The Gilded Age mixes fact and fiction, but it nails the vibe of the era. It's time to talk about how insanely beautiful everything looks. The mansions, the fancy rooms, even the streets. But have you ever stopped to think about how they made all that happen? The design, sets, and locations all work together to make you feel like you've stepped right into New York City in the late 1800s. Since the actual Gilded Age buildings aren't around, the production team got super creative. They used a mix of real historic mansions, sets built from scratch, and some visual effects magic to make everything look very authentic. One of the coolest things they did was film in real places like Newport, Rhode Island, which is home to some of the most beautiful mansions from that time. They used those houses as a huge inspiration for the Russell family's massive Fifth Avenue mansion. So when you see those fancy chandeliers, detailed woodwork, and patterned wallpaper, you're looking at history. Regina Graves, the set decorator, and her crew did an amazing job finding antiques, fabrics, and furniture that scream 1880s. They went hunting for everything from Victorian textiles to delicate art and porcelain pieces. The whole idea was to show just how over-the-top and luxurious life was for the super rich back then. They also built big sets that bring the city streets, fancy clubs, and huge ballrooms to life. Every detail counts, from the gas lamps lighting the sidewalks to the streetcars rolling by. The team blended real set pieces with painted backdrops and some digital effects to make everything look alive and bustling. Lighting was a huge part of making the vibe right too. The cinematographer, Manuel Billiter, used light to tell a story all on its own. The old money family's homes get this warm, soft glow, making them feel classic and refined. Meanwhile, the Russells' world gets a sharper, flashier light that matches their bold and brash attitude. It's a great way to show the difference between the two worlds without saying a word. Even the small stuff got love, like the food on the tables. The prop team researched what people ate back then, so the fancy dinners look legit, with roasted meats and fancy pastries that make you hungry just watching. And of course, we have to talk about the costumes. Costumes in the Gilded Age aren't just clothes. They're part of the storytelling, and a huge reason why the show feels so rich and real. HBO went all in on making sure the fashion matched the luxury and social drama of 1880s New York. Costume designer Kasia Walika Maimoni and her team created thousands of pieces across the show's seasons. Over 1,200 women's dresses, 1,000 men's suits, and everything from top hats to tiaras. Each piece is custom built using historically accurate materials and shapes, based on tons of research, including a massive image library of the period and digital access to museum collections and fashion magazines. Rather than pursuing perfect historical replicas, the costume team focused on creating a slightly heightened version of the past. They pulled a lot of inspiration from period paintings, especially works by John Singer Sargent and James Tissot, whose portraits helped guide the show's rich, vibrant look. The idea was to bring the era to life without making it feel like a museum exhibit. Each character in the Gilded Age has their own distinct style, shaped by their background and place in society. The difference between old money and new money is crystal clear in the clothing. Christine Baranski's character Agnes wears darker, more traditional jewel tones, deep navies, maroons, and velvets that show her old-world taste. On the flip side, Carrie Coon's Bertha Russell wears brighter, more daring colors and cuts, inspired by the latest European trends. She's all about making an impression, proving her worth, and showing off her wealth, and her wardrobe makes that point loud and clear. Walika Maimoni compares their styles to two New York museums, the classic, traditional Met versus the bold, modern Whitney. Behind the scenes, the process of making these looks is very intense. After Walika Maimoni finishes a design, it can take up to 6 weeks to make one dress, usually with 3 or 4 fittings to get it just right. Every major character has their own designated costume maker to keep their style consistent, just like in the real 1880s when wealthy women had their own dressmakers. Local artisans, tailors, and milliners are deeply involved, crafting everything by hand, from the hats to the buttons to the lace, making sure it all lines up with the era while still working for the actors and the camera. Accessories are a big part of the overall look too. Jewelry, gloves, parasols, shoes, every single detail counts. The costume team even works with local jewelers to recreate period pieces or design new ones that still feel accurate. Shoes are often custom-made, since real 1880s footwear doesn't exactly exist anymore, and hats are handcrafted by a mix of in-house and outside milliners. More than a period drama, the Gilded Age brings history to life with style, social clashes, and real emotions. With expert research and stunning design, it's like stepping into a world where the past feels alive and full of drama. Thanks for watching Collider. See you next time.